My name is Eva Ramos, and my work is about the architecture of Caracas. I decided to use this city to represent how the concept of architecture in Venezuela is. I know that Caracas doesn't represent all the country's architecture, but as the capital, I believe that Caracas is the center or nucleus of our culture. For this purpose, I've chosen to travel from my home in La Taona to San Bernardino, where my friend Carl lives. The trip begins in La Taona, where I live, but in my travel I stopped first at Universidad Central de Venezuela because there is where my friend studies. So I met there with him for picking him up to go into San Bernardino, and also to take the opportunity to have Carl as a tour guide of his own university, which is cataloged as Humanity Patrimonial of Venezuela. So it is transcendental to understand why Venezuelan architecture is so unique. In the travel, I found out the mosaic Jardín Lumínico in Prados del Este Road in Baruta's side, the wall of Zapata next to the UCV University, Plaza del Rectorado in the UCV, the covered plaza of the UCV, the glass wall in the main library of the UCV, the Aula Magna in the UCV, the Sambil in the Candelaria near to San Bernardino, and finally the streets of San Bernardino. Color for an artist is very important, as it means a way to add feeling to a creation. For architecture, color has more uses, as it can help to hide, expose, or even enhance certain sensations, as in excitement or calm. It can also mean to a creation a sensation of temperature, height, and even deepness. Color is very important for not only decorative purposes, but to harmonize the psychological environment for an individual. By applying the correct technique, color can overcome a chromatic disambiguation and also improve the sensibility of certain space or area. With this in mind, the architect can create a zone that, with determinate colors, can give a sensation of relaxation, elegancy, and many others. For example, I am using the wall that's located at Barutas Road in Caracas. Using the variety of colors presented by the artist Patricia Van Dalen, they made the Jardín Lumínico in the wall. The colors used, 13 in total, give a sensation of calm, as the main color is blue. We also notice that they use these colors due today not to create a distraction to the driver, so they work both decoration and psychological factors together, giving color to the zone while also expressing calm to the near drivers. Compared to the Jardín Lumínico of Baruta, the wall of Zapata is elaborated with warm colors. This gives this wall a relation to the dynamic of the environment in its place. Along with this, on it there are represented many of the greatest personalities of our history. It also works as a frontier for the university, Universidad Central de Venezuela, meaning the university overcomes shadow. A fundamental and hard to not notice factor during our way through the roof plaza and the rectorate office has been the use of light. Like we saw during the semester, this factor becomes very important at the moment of giving the sensation of space, calm, and enhance the interesting spots. At the roof plaza, it's important to point out how they use the light to make the decoration to stand out. Lightness then become an important factor during the way, guiding through the plaza and indicating to the viewers where they should center their attentions to contemplate the sculptures and paints. Since the rest of the space is covered in shadows, that means that those spaces are just for transition, as they don't have anything of interest for the public. As the users get closer to the main library, they are received by an illuminated space without a roof that can be used for study or relaxation purposes. As the inside of the library, the users can see a big window that limits the entrance of light and transform it into a wide variety of color rays that get reflected in the floor. giving the room an air of luxury similar to the ones present in the church. This type of illuminations gives the sentiment of respect inside the building and gives a sensation of calm and silence. During the travel, I had many textures feelings, but the most interesting one occurred in the Plaza Cubierta de la Central, because it consists on a visual texture. I perceived the visual texture through the artworks that were across the Plaza Cubierta, which consist on dynamic abstract figures. The form of these artworks is transmitted or corresponds perfectly with the dynamic of the plaza, because in this place are done many activities like studying, walking, making sports, or having club reunions. So these artworks reinforce that idea of energy in the space. The nubes acústicas of the Aula Magna, designed by Alexander Calder, work as an aesthetic element for the auditory, as well as panels that reflect the sound. They are made of wood, and their mission is to distribute the sound uniformly around all the room, and they prevent background sounds. The different directions of the panels let the sound be distributed by various ways, from the stage to the public. On the other hand, in the streets of San Bernardino exists an acoustic problem due to the height and proximity of the buildings. Because of this, in the moment we arrived to my friend's apartment in the penthouse, we could hear people talking on the streets, the cars' horns, and all the noise of the usual lifestyle people have there. This happens because the sound reflects on the buildings and gets to the higher levels without being able to dissipate first. As an example of rhythm, we have the road that we follow at the entrance of the UCV to reach Plaza Rectoral. This place is good for representing the rhythm because it has an example of dynamic and monotonous rhythm at the same time. And that's telling us that the designer wanted to give the visitor the chance to contempt and enjoy both sides of the feelings of these rhythms. When we reach the entrance at the right hand, we can see a large pedestrian corridor with a roof that looks like a tunnel. Visually, that road produces a monotonous rhythm, and also that road is conditioned to have the property of produce echo, so it can be an extra factor to condition the monotonous rhythm of the travel. About the dynamic rhythm, we see the path on the left, and there we can find a lot of trees and some buildings that have the same patterns of construction. Those elements mark a specific rhythm that are interrupted when we reach the clock that allows us to enter in the destiny point, the Plaza Rectoral. So this rhythm consists of a variety of elements that are synthesized in the interleaving of full and empty. Of all sites I visit, I think the Plaza Cubierta covered both concepts of circulation, vertical and horizontal. When we exit to the plaza, we found a fluid path that is given through the light, like we did mention before. And arriving to the Aula Magna zone, we find out two ramps in both sides that forms part of an horizontal circulation, maintaining the fluidity previously perceived, despite being ascending to the upper floor. As to the vertical circulation, we find many stairs that forms part of the module of the vertical circulation, located in the key points of Plaza Cubierta, where the areas of circulation cross, so it streamlines the act of ascending. While the ramp represents route and spatial relationships, the stairs represent verticality and ascending. Space and scale is referred to the way in which the human perceives the scale of the elements that surround him with respect to his own scale, and how that perception changes the way that he presents space. In Plaza Rectoral, we can see that it is an empty space, formed by three buildings surrounding the area. When standing in the center of the plaza, we feel like we are a very small person, because of the horizontality of the buildings at extremes that gives depth to the plaza, and the height of the front building that gives altitude to the plaza's borders, making us feel like accessing to an imposing space. Something like this happened when we were in our way to San Bernardino, when we passed by the San Vil de la Candelaria, that just as all the mall edifications are imposing constructions in the environment in which they are, to catch the attention of all the people and being a landmark of the area. At the end of the travel, I saw how the elements that we study along the semester work together to give Venezuela a characteristic mode of understanding the architecture. Maybe this work can't resume all the characteristics of this country, because I only use the capital, but with this project we could understand how Venezuela is a unique country that uses primordially the concepts of color and illumination and light. This is possible because the country is located in the tropic, and with the weather of the region, the use of colors and light are indispensable for remark and catch the attention. In the UCV, the use of these concepts are almost touchable, and that's why it is a patrimonial of the humanity. But along the city, we see that not all the buildings and artworks are used properly these meanings. In my personal opinion, I believe that this project is fundamental to understand how the culture of this country influenced in its way of express the architecture, and how there are a lot of needs that are being requested in determined areas of the same city. The space, the rhythm, and the circulations results fundamental to understanding the needs and the possibility that an area can offer to a construction. Without those concepts, I'm sure that a building would not make sense with itself or with its context.